Good morning. Could we get everybody's attention real quick? All righty. Good morning. I want to thank everyone for coming out in support of the Southwest Chief this morning. I want to personally thank Senator Heinrich for all his efforts in ensuring in ensuring that the services will continue the New Mexico leg of this historic route. You know, the first rail line over the pass was completed in 1878, and it contained numerous switchbacks and severely steep grades. The following year, the first tunnel was completed, which alleviated the switchbacks and some of the grade. This route is still the steepest main line in operation while still ruffling the original route. Southwest Chief, as we know it, began service from Chicago to Los Angeles in the 1920s. During its operation, the Chief has brought numerous passengers, adventurers, family members, and Boy Scouts to the Wild West. Growing up, my grandparents would make the trip from California to Raton once a year on the Chief. Many of you probably have similar stories. The line continues to bring thousands of scouts to Raton on their way to the historic Philmont Scout Ranch. I cannot stress enough the importance of this service to our community, both economically and socially. We're in the midst of a Main Street revitalization here in Raton, and the loss of this line would likely mean the end to some of the businesses that you see on First Street right now. So I sincerely want to thank Senator Heinrich, the New Mexico delegation, and their colleagues for their valiant efforts in passing legislation in support of continued service of the Southwest Chief. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Commissioner Bill Sobel and the hard work that he's done throughout this. I'd like to close with this remark I found regarding the Southwest Chief. It says, "Take in the grandeur of the American West on an adventure between Chicago and Los Angeles. The Southwest Chief runs daily between Chicago and Los Angeles through the vast expanse of the fabled American West. You'll be mesmerized by this region's beauty and allure. We'll take you across the mighty Mississippi through 8 states, past wheat fields and ranches, missions and pueblos, mountains and not deserts, deserts. Carving through curving canyon passages only a few feet wider than the train itself. You'll see spectacular landscapes and pristine vistas not visible from interstate highways." This description actually came from the Amtrak website. So I think Mr. Anderson should take a sample of some of his services. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. Right now I'd like to introduce Ms. Shelly O'Neil. She's the Director of Operations for the Philmont Scout Ranch.
Thank you, Mayor Sagata. Each summer, Philmont Scout Ranch welcomes over 22,000 scouts from across the country, delivering wilderness and learning adventures that last a lifetime on 12-day backpacking expeditions, trekking through more than 140,000 acres in these beautiful Sangre de Cristo Mountains. In our 80-year history, over 1 million scouts have hiked our trails. The dedication to Philmont by our benefactor, Wade Phillips, best sums up our mission. That Philmont was donated and dedicated to the Boy Scouts of America for the purpose of perpetuating faith, self-reliance, integrity, and freedom, principles used to build this great country by the American pioneer, so that these future citizens may, through thoughtful adult guidance and by the inspiration of nature, visualize and form a code of living to diligently maintain these high ideals and our proper destiny.
Show our support of the Amtrak that comes through here twice daily, and to let you know a little bit about what it's like to have a business down here on First Street. Initially, about almost 5 years ago, my husband and I were looking for a place, and we really wanted to be on First Street. And there were several reasons. One being that we loved the architecture of the buildings down here. We also knew that Amtrak came through here twice a day, and we wanted to help support the tourism industry by doing what we could to help those people coming off, those scouts and leaders coming off and getting on. And then also just because we really knew that it would make a difference to our economy, especially here on First Street. Now, I'd have to say, too, that it has really impacted not only First Street, but all of Second Street and all the way down Second Street, because many times we would see our scouts walking up and down the street, going down to Super Save or one of the restaurants down on the end, or we'd be over at, they would be over at the Santa Fe Trail Traders, unfortunately, which is no longer here, but also at the Solano's and many other places. They'd be eating at Bruno's Pizza Parlor over here. They would be packed to where they would have to hire 2 or 3 more wait staff just to take care of the scouts. So really the impact of the scouting has been tremendous. But I also know that just as a traveler myself for Amtrak, that it's very important that the people who ride Amtrak see this lovely street because of the architecture and the history and the culture here. My husband and I ride Amtrak quite a bit, and we always are looking out the window, and this is one of the best sights.
To Colfax County residents, Raton, New Mexico residents, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate the turnout. It's a really good turnout. I'm going to be somewhat brief. We were given 3 minutes to speak. I'm going to give you a little history on the actual, when this actually started. A lot of this information I got from our chairman, Bill Sobel, from the County Commission. In November of 2011, Amtrak informed Kansas, Colorado, and New Mexico officials that they would reroute.
Thank you, Commissioner Fernandez. I want to acknowledge the efforts of Colfax County in regard to the Tiger Grant. That is a huge effort. And so thanks to Colfax County for everything that they have done there. And I do want to again acknowledge Commissioner Sobel. Over the last 7 or 8 years, Commissioner Sobel has traveled the country to advocate for Southwest Chief line and rail kill. Thank you again. Senator Martin Heinrich.
Who here loves the Southwest Chief? I think I tell the same story because that was one of the fattest cinnamon black bears I've ever seen. I'm here. This is a historic train route, but this is not about history. This is about the future. And we have an incredible local team in your county commissioners, in your city leadership, in the Boy Scouts and everyone else who has pulled together from the business community to show real leadership, saying we have to invest in our communities. And when Amtrak came forward and said, you need to do better, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, people from all 3 states stepped up and started working together. And to have that 3rd Tiger Grant pulled back, we keep our word in this country. It's just not right. And it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're not going to spend the money to upgrade the tracks, then the tracks aren't going to be upgraded, huh? So we have pulled together a team in Washington, D.C. to try to emulate what your commissioners and your mayor and all of your local leadership here have done. And we have one of the most bipartisan delegation efforts that I've ever seen in my time working in Washington. We have both senators from Kansas, 2 Republicans. We have Colorado's, both senators, and both senators from here in New Mexico, not to mention your Congressman, Ben Ray Lujan, who's been in those meetings with Mr. Anderson too. And all on the exact same page. If the CEO of Amtrak had come to us and said, we need to work together to invest more in the Southwest Chief, we would have stood up and cheered. Rather than coming to us and saying, those folks in urban areas, they deserve train service, but, in the heartland, we're just going to have them ride a bus. We're not going to accept that. And I can tell you, he did not get a very receptive welcome from the 6 senators and your congressman when he delivered that message in my office a number of weeks ago. So we are going to work together across party lines. We're going to do what it takes to keep the Southwest Chief rolling on these tracks. We went to work on an appropriations amendment that puts $50 million into the Southwest Chief line and says we'll do whatever it takes to keep this going, and requires Amtrak to keep running the Southwest Chief. So I can tell you that Tom Udall and myself and Ben Ray Lujan and the good senators from Kansas and from Colorado have been inspired by all the local leadership that we have seen. And we're going to replicate that in Washington, D.C. And for about a year and a half now, I've been the ranking member on the Joint Economic Committee. And as somebody who grew up on a cow-calf operation outside of a big town, 1,006 people, one of my focuses has been, you know, we've got real issues in rural America. And how are we going to solve those real issues? And there's been a lot of talk about investment in infrastructure. And that is what we should be talking about, but we should be matching that talk with real action. Transportation infrastructure, water infrastructure, broadband into every rural communities. That is how we connect rural and urban America together and how we grow our economy all across this country in every community, no matter what your zip code is. And that's what people on both sides of the aisle should be stepping up to do. That's what this project on Southwest Chief represents. And we are not going to stop fighting until we have a new, better, modern Southwest Chief. Thank you all.